Today on Chin Music, our baseball show at TalkNorth.com, we will talk about the first press conference for Derek Shelton, what we expect out of the Twins this winter. We're going to get Roy Smalley's views of the World Series and the impending off-season. We'll talk about the possibilities in free agency. I know it's probably silly, but we're going to do it anyway. We'll mention Joe Ryan, and we'll conclude the show with our Booze and Blues segment, which is always a lot of fun. Lineup today, Roy Smalley, former Twin great and former Twin broadcaster, LaVelle Neal III, Minneapolis Star-Tribune, Minnesota Star-Tribune, baseball guru and columnist who also broke the news of Derek Shelton being hired. I'm Jim Souhan, also from the Star-Tribune and TalkNorth.com. TalkNorth.com is a very large podcast network. We have great people. We have Russo, LaPanta, Roy, LaVelle, John Krasinski, Randy Shaver, Mark Rosen, Don Mitchell, Alec Lewis, Jeff Diamond. We've got so many shows I can't always remember them all. We also have outdoor content. Check it out. When you find a show you like, please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. We do appreciate it. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services. Summer's packing up and chilly mornings are sneaking in. Don't face them with a cranky furnace, flickering lights, or a water heater that quits mid-shower. With $98 off any furnace, electrical, or plumbing repair, we'll fix the headaches so you can sip cider, rake leaves, or just pretend to rake leaves. Aquarius, local, trusted, and earning the right to be recommended. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com.
Hey, this is Randy Shaver. Along with Kevin Gorg, we host the show Fantasy Huddle on Talk North. Each week, we're going to break down the matchups for the NFL season and try to give you the best chance to win your fantasy football games each and every week. Join us for Fantasy Huddle on Talk North.
And we're presented to you today by OnX Maps. We'll tell you about them and our other sponsors here a little bit later. All right, let's start here. LaVelle, tell me about the press conference at which Derek Shelton was presented, what you thought of it, and whether we got any answers about whether the Twins are going to try to compete next year.
Well, I think because everybody already knew Derek Shelton, there's more of a more relaxed conversational, kind of shoot the BS type of atmosphere in the interview room. He was pretty straightforward, engaging, loquacious, a little self-deprecating at times. I mean, it was pretty sharp. I mean, he said all the right things that needed to be said. The thing that struck me is that the overarching thing here was we got to help develop the young players. We got to help develop young players. We got to help Royce Lewis stay on the field. We got to try to get Brooks Lee to the next level. There was no talk about using free agency to fill in the holes or pursuing the trade market. And even they were asked, at the during the press conference and after the press conference when they broke up into smaller groups about their plans for the offseason. And they were like, we're working through it, or that's something that's going to be determined as we go along. And it really wasn't they really weren't forthcoming, giving us any details about how they're going to attack this roster, or if are they pretty much going to stick with the same roster they have now and go with what they got, or are they going to even, trade more players like Joe Ryan or Pablo Lopez? So, I think, like I said, Shelton was entertaining. There was a relaxed atmosphere. It was Joe Pohlad standing in the back looking stoic. I had an encounter with him afterwards, which was brief. But
well, tell us about that.
Well, I wanted to try to get some clarity on what the hell the Twins are doing. So as soon as the presser was over, I did a beeline for Joe Pohlad, and I said, "Do you have time to talk?" He goes, "What do you want to talk about?" I'm like, "Oh God, here we go." So it wasn't that long of a conversation. I asked him about the timeline for identifying and announcing the limited partners they're supposed to be adding on. And I got him to say at the end that he was hoping by the end of the year, which I have to admit, which was what a league official, when all this went down with the announcement that they weren't selling the team and were bringing on investors, I called someone in the league office and they said, worst case scenario, it's done at the end of the year. I've also heard that maybe in a couple weeks at the owners' meetings in New York, something could be announced there, because that'll also be a place where the owners could, sign off or vote on the Twins ownership structure. So Joe kind of sort of verified that. He wouldn't commit on what the payroll is going to look like next year. He says they're still talking through it. So, and kind of deflected a couple more questions when I was trying to ask him about the whole process and how they got to where they're at right now. And at that point, I got a story to write, so I had to go talk to some other people, and I just told them, all right, I'm done here. I got to scram. So it was like a 2-minute conversation in which Joe was visibly uncomfortable having. So,
well, what? If you're the team owner and you show up at a press conference, somebody's going to ask you a question.
Yeah, you're right. I'm surprised no one else approached him. I think everybody had their own agenda, as far as there was a Derek Falvey scrum, and then there was a Jeremy Zoll scrum, which was smaller, and then there was another Derek Shelton scrum. So I think people were kind of going around the room trying to hit all three. TK was still there. Ken Herbert was there. Shelton's wife had a couple people asking the questions. So there was a lot of stuff going on. And I think maybe people's priorities just didn't include Joe. But I'm like, fans deserve some clarity what the hell's going on here with this team, what direction it is. And, I tried to ask Joe about what went into the decision to change their plans and not sell the team and things like that. And he didn't want to get any deeper into that. So I got what I could out of him, and then I moved on. So that was semi-interesting, semi-entertaining part of that whole afternoon was my conversation with Joe. But I mean, Derek was fine. He was great. Talked about, mistakes he made in Pittsburgh, how communication could have been better in a couple of situations. Making sure that his thoughts, his ideas, his plan, his philosophy is being, communicated properly by the coaches to the players, things like that. He liked to work on how he's going to build his coaching staff. So, the coaching news, they could have the coaching staff announced, within a week or so. And, I am confident that there will be a former Twins player as part of Shelton's, coaching staff, based on some rumblings I've heard since then. So that was
you want to give us a hint?
I wish I could. I have a feeling. So that was the day in a nutshell. Pretty perfunctory. Couple laughs along the way, and as we all have, engaged with Shelton in the past, he was the same old Shelty.
Roy, this is our first chance to talk to you in a little bit. Now that the hire has been made, what do you make of it?
I've always been a Derek Shelton fan. In the role that he played with the Twins, and I thought it was I think it's a good hire. I mean, he's a good baseball man. I think he's good with players. I think it's interesting to hear him talk about the mistakes he made. I actually really like that. A guy comes out of a long career in baseball, achieves the height of bench coach, and was good at, I think, by all accounts and from what I saw, was good at that. So the next step is getting a managerial job. So he goes to a place, because guys want to manage, right? They can't pick. They can't pick the Dodgers. I mean, they get to go where there's an opening and where they win the job in an interview process. And so his first managerial job's with a bad team. And to hear him talk about mistakes he made and some of the things that he'll do differently, I think is refreshing. And so I guess my point is, you take a good baseball man and a guy that's fundamentally a really good guy, and a guy that should be able to do all of the managerial X and O kinds of things. Learned from his first job with a bad team. Now I don't want to say they're a bad team. I'll just say that he comes to a team that's similar and has its challenges. I think that's it. I think all those things are positive. I think he'll do a good job for given the reality that the managers do as well as the players as the players play. So I think I'm looking forward to it. I actually was in favor of him getting hired, and I'm glad it happened.
All right, cool. Let's get to what we expect out of this winter. Roy's view of the World Series and Booze and Blues and everything else. We do want to let you know we are presented to you by Onyx Maps and Onyx Hunt. Onyx Hunt, have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that, or maybe you need to know exactly where property line runs? That's where Onyx Hunt comes in. And it's not just for hunters. There are folks using Onyx for their jobs every day throughout the country, from farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property. This app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, Onyx Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it free for 7 days. Download Onyx Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onyxmaps.com/hunt to get started. So the World Series was a blast. And LaVelle and I had a chance to recap it a little bit, but Roy is someone who played at a high level for a long time and is tied into the game. I'm really interested in what you thought of the World Series, Roy.
Well, my first thought is, it has been since it was over, what a privilege that was to be able to watch that series. I mean, it was an absolute privilege. And so proud of the way Toronto played. So proud of how so many players, at their first go at it, just stepped up and played great. And that was, that made the series what it was. They outplayed the Dodgers. I don't think there's any question about it. They outplayed the Dodgers until the last 2 innings of Game 6 and in the 7th game. It was really interesting to me that when the Dodgers won, they barely won. And when Toronto won, they just kicked their ass. And that's the way the series went until and finished that way in the 7th game. And what that says to me is the Dodgers had issues, and they overcame it just with ultimately some talent and a whole lot of desire, a whole lot of grit, right? I mean, they just, you got to give them credit. As much as many people hate that they're in it, they buy all these players and all that kind of stuff. In the final analysis, for me, I love seeing great players play great. All the great players on both teams ended up doing really big things. You would expect the Dodgers to have had the great players do more good things than maybe they did, which is why it went to 7 games. But you look at the other side, and the reason they didn't do as much is because Toronto was awfully good. They were good on the mound. They were really good at the plate, and they were phenomenal defensively. And that combination, had them right to the Game 7 where it looked like they were going to win it, and then the Dodgers just won it. And that's just the way, that's the way baseball is. And you got to give a lot of credit to, both teams for having it be so stunningly enjoyable. I mean, I just thought it was marvelous.
It was great. And what struck me is that in this era where managers just aren't supposed to be, that important to winning. And I think generally they aren't the most important thing. They aren't like football coaches who kind of build the whole program and determine success. But I did think Dave Roberts had a great World Series and had an incredible Game 7.
I'll tell you what, that was as well managed a 7-game series as I've seen. I thought that John Schneider did a great job too. I
agree.
I think I really like him. I think he pulled all the right levers. I mean, absolutely all the right levers. He even did, and when I think about managers pulling levers, I mean, it's easy to pull the ones that stick out farther than every other lever. And so the book says you have to pull this one, and it's one thing just to, pull all of the obvious levers and then lose and say, well, I did everything right. I covered my ass. And I like, managers that, that's okay. Here's a couple levers I could pull. This one is kind of by the book, but I know my players and I've got a gut and this is, gut feel, and this is what I'm going to do. And Schneider did that to some degree, but Dave Roberts just, it was like some of the things that he did was like, oh, really? You want to? You're going to play Miguel Rojas all of a sudden out of nowhere?
How about that?
And the young man won the World Series for him. But he makes a great catch on Kike Hernandez's nice play in Game 6 to win that game. And then that ground ball when he just barely got Kiner Falefa at home plate, that was a tough play to make, and he came up with it with the game on the line, and there were a lot of instances where Dave Roberts did those kinds of things, and moving people around in the lineup and all that kind of thing. He was phenomenal.
Well, he used his entire rotation in Game 7, which was unbelievable to watch unfold. But in doing so, he managed to round the one weakness that the Dodgers had, which was their bullpen. Until they got to the ninth inning, there was a hole there between whenever the starter came out and whenever they went to Sasaki. And it was all hands on deck mode. He was willing to use all his pitchers, including Yamamoto, whose Game 7 outing was just fantastic to watch unfold. The fact that he even was willing to pitch on no days rest is just mind-boggling to me. I looked it up. I had forgotten that Randy Johnson did it in 01 for the Diamondbacks against the Yankees. But in this case, Yamamoto threw 2 2/3 innings on no days rest. That just truly remarkable effort. And I don't know if it's on him or Roberts for persuading him, but the Dodgers have a title because of it.
Yeah,
and
great
like
stuff.
I said, as far as Derek Shelton's job that he's going to do, it depends on your players. And to have that guy sitting out there and say, "Yeah, I'll go the last 2 1/3 or whatever it was," and even though I pitched 6 1/3 yesterday, and be able to come back and do that it helps to have players, doesn't it? And I bet there wasn't too much persuading that he had to do. Yamamoto's going to make a lot of money one way or the other. You're not going to. You just don't know if you'll ever get another chance. The Dodgers probably get another chance to be in a World Series, but you never know. And I got to believe that most everybody in a situation like Yamamoto, I think they'd have done that. They'd for sure gone out there and given it their best shot. And it just, luckily for Dave Roberts, Yamamoto's best shot is, pretty doggone good.
And it was almost the perfect World Series because I don't like upsets early in playoffs because then you get robbed of the chance to see Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Mookie Betts, all these great players playing on the biggest stage. But once the Dodgers got to the World Series, I wanted the Jays to win. And if they had finished that out in like extra innings of a 7th game in Toronto, that would have been, to me, the perfect ending. But you can't write the ending, and the Dodgers earned it, so it was a blast. Let's take care of a couple people who take care of us. Let's thank Minnesota Masonic Charities.
Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Masonic Charities. When you think about the Masons, I get it. You think about the funny hats, those pancake breakfasts, which are phenomenal. But my dear friend John Schweitz and I have chatted about this, and it's so much more than that. They've got the Masonic Home over in Bloomington. They've got the Hospital for the Children over at the U of M. They are the largest fraternal organization in terms of charitable needs in our country, and they deserve a ton of recognition. So thank you, Minnesota Masonic Charities, for all you do and for supporting us over here at Talk North, and a special thanks to my good friend, John Schweitz.
Let's also thank, along with Michael Russo, Clamshell Beach Resorts.
Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a Clamshell Beach Resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, no snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819.
So I think it's going to be a long off season. I think we will table speculation on what they're going to do and who might get traded and what might fill the rosters and all that. Except for this, let's start the conversation today, but let's start it with the very specific item that we usually talk about this time of the year, and that is, can and will they go get a middle of the order hitter to solidify their lineup and be a leader for the kids? Roy, do you think that's a possibility, and do you have a name in mind?
I don't think it's a possibility, but I'm having fun thinking about it.
All right, good.
I've thrown out, the obvious contracts that are going to be demanded. Though I've thrown out those players. The Twins aren't going to step up and do that much, but there's some guys that a combination of younger-ish age. There's a lot of really good free agents out there. They're going to have, teams are going to have to make decisions on big bucks that are 31 years old or 32 years old or 33 years old. There's a lot of those guys, and they're going to have to make decisions about that. There's a couple of guys that I'd be interested in for the Twins for a lot of reasons, because they'll play a position that the Twins could use, and because they're young enough, and maybe they could they could part with enough money to get one of these guys. The problem is, it really is two things. Twins aren't going to spend a whole lot of money on anybody, number one, and number two, is anybody going to come here? Is anybody going to come to Minnesota? I mean, I think that's the biggest impediment. You get guys that I'd be interested in, that the Twins might be able to do, and they're going to go, nope. I'm a good enough player, and I've been around long enough that I want to go someplace where I know I got a chance to win next year. But having said all of that, there's two guys, or maybe three, that I'm interested in. The guy that I'd be most interested in for the Twins is Bo Bichette. I don't think that they can sign him, but he's 28 years old, I think. He's got a terrific approach at the plate, one that every Twins hitter could learn from. He's got the kind of attitude that I think would, to put it nicely, would inspire other players. And I think he would be a terrific combination of offense and defense at second base. He's not a shortstop anymore. He can play second base well enough, for sure, with that bat. He's another right-hand hitter, which would be good for the club. I'm interested in him. I don't think it's possible, but he's one guy that I look at and go, you know what? I'd like to watch him every day. I'd like to watch him hit every day. And that approach that I'm talking about, I mean, you see him hit the ball out of the ballpark in a huge situation in Game 7. He can do that. But his ability with two strikes, at what he does and what he could show Twins hitters about hitting with two strikes, would be worth half his salary to me. And so I'm interested in Bo. Also, I think Josh Naylor is a guy that would fit well. I know he's a left-hand hitter. They got a lot of left-hand hitters, but he's got a real edge to him. He drives in a lot of runs. He plays good first base. He's young enough. He'd be another personality in the Twins clubhouse that it seems to me would be beneficial. So I'm kind of interested in him. And a long shot, never come here, is not as vital a piece, but I think he'd be a real good guy to have in the outfield is Cody Bellinger. So I would be I'm interested in those three guys, and for all the reasons that I rambled on about to begin with.
Josh Naylor was a guy that I was looking at as well. He could go play first base and he could bat in the middle of the order and provide some thump there. I don't know if he want to come here. I'm guessing he would be looking for a situation where he would have a chance to win. Maybe he goes back to returns to Seattle. So I started lowering my sights down to another Josh, which would probably be the more of the type of player the Twins would sign if they sign anyone this offseason. That would be Josh Bell. Josh Bell hit 22 homers last year. He's a switch hitter. He's okay. But I got a feeling that's more of the type of player that the Twins would be willing to spend money on than a Josh Naylor or maybe a Ryan O'Hearn, who's he's somewhere in between those two. I don't know. So my expectations are incredibly low for what the Twins are going to do or achieve during free agency this year. They'll probably wait till like February 10th to start signing people, and they'll find another Ty France type person or find another Harrison Bader type, and then flip him at the deadline.
Well, but this is the time that you dream, and you know what? I'm on a World Series high right now. I love baseball. I want the Twins to do well, so I'm just, I've got all kinds of dopamine and coursing through my brain, my bloodstream right now.
I like it.
I love your optimism.
How about this one?
Oh, it's all performative.
How about this one? They basically have to assume that Royce Lewis is going to bounce back. Otherwise, they're not going to win anything anyway. They're probably going to give Brooksley an extended tryout at shortstop. Keishel's the second baseman of now and the future. What about Jorge Polanco as a first base DH type, just to have a professional bat in the middle of the lineup? Roy?
Well, I'm a big Jorge Polanco fan. So anytime, yes, and more yes. I mean, I'd love to have him, on this. And I don't know about first base. I mean, he'd be fine, but just having him around, And I'm also a fan of switch hitters that can hit from both sides, and they always make a lineup better if they're swinging it, as we saw in the postseason. But he had a wonderful year this year, wonderful play. I was so happy for him, and would love to see him in Twins uniform again. I mean, if that's an easy get, then why wouldn't you? And I know that Luke Keeschel is the second baseman, but I just and I know that Bo Bichette will never come to Minnesota, and the Twins will never pay him. But
Yes.
Like I said, I just kind of being dreamy about it. You can find a place for Keeschel if you had a guy like Bichette. So that's the last I'll say of that thing. That will never happen.
Yeah, the thing about Jorge too is that he was a rock of durability during his time with the Twins until about 2022, and then he had a couple years with injury problems. And last year, his first year with Seattle, he had some injury problems. He is finally healthy again and responded with 26 homers and an 821 OPS. So once he was able to return to the durable Jorge of the past, he was able to stay on the field, stay sharp, and produce. He opted out of his contract and become a free agent, and I wouldn't mind him playing first base. I put him in the 2 or 3 hole in the Twins lineup, or maybe 3 hole, and see what he could do. But there is mutual interest in returning to Seattle, just like it is with Naylor. So sure. We'll see how that goes. But no, I wouldn't have a problem with Jorge Polanco coming back. That would bring a veteran bat, and he's only going to be 32 next year. It seems like he's been around forever, because remember, the Twins called him up when he was in A-ball because they were out of shortstops. We were in Texas when he made his debut, and I still remember first press conference at Jorge, and we're asking him, are you nervous making the big jump? And he says, I won't be nervous at the plate. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Him.
I want to see this. So Or he's always been one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's him. I was down there as well, LaVelle. I was way up there in the crow's nest that they call a TV booth doing the game. When he came up, for his first at bat. We're going, wait a minute, from A ball? You got to be kidding me! And his first at bat, I'll never forget this. He rifled a triple down the right field line. I look, I looked at him. I said, I watched that at bat, and I thought, I think they might have something here. That was one of the more amazing at bats that I've seen, just because of the situation. A young kid coming out of A ball, getting in a really big situation, and it was like, no, if you throw the ball over the plate, it's going to get hit hard somewhere. That's just what I do.
The funny part too about another thing, talking to Jake Maurer. Jake Maurer was Jorge's manager in the minors, and he remembers a spring training where it was just like a year before that. Jorge was like showing some major homesickness, so they're trying to, keep his spirits up and keep him confident and not trying to keep him from thinking about just wanting to go home and pack it all in. Then the next year he comes back and he's in a spring training game against Boston, and John Lester's pitching, and so Lester was on the comeback trail from whatever condition he was dealing with. And Jake was telling me about this bomb that Polanco hit off Lester, and he was like, this kid can swing it, man. So even then you saw the potential there. And he was like the third wheel, the international signing class. He was signed the same year as Sano and Kepler, and Kepler and Polanco, they're like close friends. They're like best friends in baseball. But they signed those three guys, and Polanco was like the third wheel of that group. And he ended up probably having the most productive career of the three.
No question.
All right. Does anybody have a blues and booze topic for today?
I do have a topic.
All right.
It's not about a particular bourbon. It's about preference. Last night at the Loon Cafe in Minneapolis, we had our annual BBWAA meeting with the Twins, just to go over media stuff from the previous year. Talk about the Diamond Awards, which basically the Diamond Awards are going away for a couple of years because the cost is getting too cost prohibitive, and there's a lack of manpower at the University of Minnesota right now because of layoffs and things like that. So we're gonna give out the awards at the week of Twins Fest. So we went through that, but afterwards, we stayed and had an adult beverage, and so it was interesting to watch people and their selections. And Matthew Leach, who I have to give credit to, ordered an Eagle Rare Neat, which I was very impressed with. The selection. Eagle Rare is a very fine bourbon, and no ice. I prefer my bourbon with no ice, but whenever I go to a bar, I order a bourbon, it comes in with ice, and I'm like, I maybe I should fight more for that, but I've given up and I'll just drink it on the rocks, and just get over it, because bartenders get into their habits. It's hard to develop them sometimes. So then, Dan Hayes of the Athletic orders an old fashioned, and I said, what bourbon you using for your old fashioned? And he's like, Maker's Mark. I was like, Maker's Mark's terrible. Why don't you use like Buffalo Trace? He's like, you don't waste Buffalo Trace in the old fashioned. And I'm like, I'm sitting there going, no, yeah, you can. It's not like I'm asking to put Blanton's or Whittle Jane or Calumet in an old fashioned. For me, my preference is I think Buffalo Trace is a great bourbon for old fashions. But Hayes is like, you use the lower level of bourbon for old fashions. I said, yeah, but that affects the flavor. Maker's Mark tastes like crap, So we're having this debate about how you like your bourbon, what bourbon do you like with old fashions, and do you like it neat? Do you like it on the rocks? Do you like the ice ball? So it was just kind of interesting to see the different opinions and styles of how people enjoy their bourbon.
Roy, you have anything to add to that?
I will say this. I'm with you. I think if you're going to drink bourbon, even if it's in an old fashioned, you have to have good bourbon. I mean, you don't have to get to your point, you have to get the best stuff, but you still have to. You can't put crap in there just because there's another ingredient or two. I feel the same way about tequilas and margarita, martinis, and I mean, I basically want to drink good alcohol up anyway. So I'm also with you. I mean, bourbon neat for me, please. Margarita shaken and poured in a martini glass, please. You have to have you just have to. It doesn't cost that much more to have a good base of whatever it is that you're drinking.
Correct. I agree.
I have nothing to add. You guys covered that subject very well with great expertise, and I appreciate it. Well, I'll think of another booze and blues topic for next week. Good conversation. We'll get more into free agents. We'll talk about possible trades the Twins might make. Get into Major League Baseball news next week. For today, thank you for listening. Thanks to Roy. Thanks to LaVelle. Thanks to all of our listeners. We do appreciate it. Check out all the other shows at TalkNorth.com, and we will be back next week.